What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dynasty Nerds YouTube channel. Today we're back with a solo video. If you guys have been tapped into the channel, you know earlier this week Garrett and we did a video where we talked about some players we would be selling that 2026 first round pick for. Now in that video, we went through, we looked at the early first over on Keep Trade Cut, looking at that value and the players in that range. We did the same for the middle round of the picks and the late round picks as well there. For that first round, this is going to be an extension of that video. This is going to be the second round picks and some players that I would be looking to buy with those draft picks in the same criteria, looking at KTC, looking at an early, a mid, and a late second, and trying to buy those players. So hopefully you guys are going to enjoy that today, but that is what we are getting into. So let's not waste any time. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel if you're not already. But for the first player, in the early second round, I would be trying to trade for TJ Hockenson. Now, I look at TJ Hockenson for the Minnesota Vikings. This is a player who is 28 years old still, not necessarily old when you're looking at the tight end position. And I see KTC, he is ranked as the 12th overall tight end. Now, that is a pretty big drop off from what we saw him being earlier in the year. Right at the beginning of the season, he was a player who was kind of around that tight end 6, tight end 7 type of range, and we've already seen him fall, but that's because the Minnesota Vikings haven't performed to the expectations of some people. And because of those expectations not being met, TJ Hockenson is only averaging 8.1 fantasy points per game at the moment, which is good for the tight end 23. Obviously not what you drafted or you rostered TJ Hockenson to do. But I look at what he's been doing so far to start the year, and Hockenson has been used a lot as a blocker, a lot early on in the games where it's been the Vikings, playing with a beat-up offensive line. Christian Darrisaw was not in the lineup for a good majority of the beginning of the year. They lost Will Fries for a period of time. Ryan Kelly, even Brian O'Neill missed some time. So they've been kind of using this patchwork offensive line to start the year, and by default, TJ Hockenson has been needed as a chip blocker, kind of on the edge of that offensive line, being a 6th offensive lineman on that line of scrimmage. So he hasn't really been able to go out and run a ton of routes, but when I'm looking at the rest of season, this is a player who's starting to get back into that full-time role as a tight end. Obviously, he's dealt with the injury, previous years, and he's kind of been working his way back from that, but he's back to being a full-time player, and he does have the easiest tight end schedule remaining from weeks 9 through 17. So basically, once we get to week 9, the rest of the way for this year, the easiest tight end schedule for Hockenson. Now, I think that's potential for him to become a second-half sleeper for us. Obviously, people are not excited with what they've got, and this is a crowded offense in Minnesota, but he does still have enough of a target share to go around that I do think is still going to make him valuable, seeing about a 17% target share. He's still seeing some high-value opportunities as well. 4 red zone targets through those 5 weeks, which is the 11th best in the NFL at the tight end position, and I think a bet on TJ Hockenson is a bet on a few things. It's a bet that he can bounce back and return to top 5, top 7-ish type of potential once he gets healthy and this Vikings team kind of gets back into the flow of things. And that's also going to be a bet that when everybody gets healthy, Kevin O'Connell and J.J. McCarthy get on the same page, and this offense starts to look a little bit better over time. So I think TJ Hockenson for an early second-round pick in a tight end premium type of format, if people are low, if people are starting to doubt Minnesota and doubt TJ Hockenson as a talent, I would be trying to buy that with that early second. So say you have a mid-second-round pick and you're looking to sell that for a player. It's going to be the unappealing, maybe the unsexy name, but I think it's a productive name nonetheless. It's Khalil Shakir, the wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills. Look, he's only 25 years old, and right now on Keep Trade Cut, he is very undervalued as the wide receiver 44, currently averaging about 11.6 fantasy points per game, which is good for the wide receiver 33. So even if you just looked at the points per game that he's averaging and his current rank on KTC, you see there's a gap right there from wide receiver 44 to wide receiver 33 in production. Looking at the first 5 weeks of the NFL season, Khalil Shakir, he currently ranks as the second best wide receiver in NFL open percentage at 58.6%. Funny enough, it's right behind Stephon Diggs, so I don't think anybody would have projected those to be the top 2 names of the list, but he's getting open very often in this offense. And what that means is really just 2 to 5 yards of separation when you are being targeted. So I look at this Bills offense for the majority of the next couple of seasons. Obviously, Khalil Shakir, he's going to be an unappealing buy because he doesn't have the name appeal that some of these other players have. And I think he still has this unknown ceiling, but he has a very safe and a very high floor that I think is going to give you this safe wide receiver 3 flex play type of production in your lineup every single week that you decide to play him. And he's obviously going to be a part of one of the better offenses in the NFL as well, as long as Josh Allen is under center. This is also a player who gets a ton of designed plays. They're looking for him, trying to get the football in his hands. And with him separating at a high level and getting these design plays, I think that's just a recipe for success as far as that safe fantasy football production goes, especially in a PPR league. And while everybody in the Dynasty community is looking for guys like Dalton Kincaid or guys like Keon Coleman to emerge and develop into the wide receiver one or the number one receiving target for Josh Allen, what if the answer has always just been Khalil Shakir, who is also 25, a young player who has also developed and become a reliable target for Josh Allen? Maybe it's not those other guys. Not that they can't be good, but what if Khalil Shakir is just that guy for Josh Allen right now, and you can still get that safe production, kind of like a Jacoby Myers, who has been undervalued for a couple of years, and obviously he has been a fantasy football producer, one of the more undervalued assets for us for a long period of time. I think Khalil Shakir could follow in those footsteps of Jacoby Myers and maybe have a little bit more ceiling than Jacoby Myers just because of the offense that he's in with the quarterback that he has.
Hey, Nerd Herd, want to tell you about a show that we've been doing live on YouTube where we go over your teams and we talk about how to fix your broken roster. It's called Roster Rescue. We do it live every single Monday at noon Eastern time. And if you want to get a part of that, just head to our Dynasty Nerds homepage, go under the store tab, and you'll find Roster Rescue right there. Perfect opportunity to get your rosters in shape before the season or even in the middle of the season to make sure that you can win a championship.
Last and final buy, and this is going to be for the late second round pick, but understand over on Keep Trade Cut, there's not a big value gap between the mid second rounds and the late second rounds. It's honestly a big bunch of players where, yeah, maybe it might be a late second round in your league, but if you're giving a mid second round, the value difference is not that big. So I just want to make sure that that is clear as we're looking at that as the variable, because like Garrett said in our first video, we're trying to be unbiased, not use the Dynasty GM tool, but we do think that that is a good reference to use if you need to use it. KTC is one that is unbiased, so we are using that. Matthew Stafford is the name. And look, they talked about this on the Dynasty Nerds pod just the other day. He's a player you're never going to command a first-round pick for at this point in time. He's a player that if you're rebuilding and you're trying to sell him, you're lucky to get a second. We're trying to get a second. Yes, you may not be selling for a third, but I think if you're buying on the other side of this thing, this is a contender buy using my late second-round pick. Matthew Stafford is a great choice. Now, obviously, there's some things to consider with Matthew Stafford. 37 years old, going to be 38 before the season's even up. Currently, the KTC QB 27 in their rankings, and right now, averaging 19.9 fantasy points per game, which is good for the quarterback 9. So, that being said, Matthew Stafford is on pace for one of the best fantasy football seasons to date, and he's basically at the top of every single passing list that you can look up, including things like passing yards, passing first downs, passing touchdowns, completions, yards per attempt, and passer rating. And that said, he's still not going to command you that first round pick. So the reason why is you are buying a rental. And we know that we're buying a rental. It's a very nice rental, a premium rental. Maybe you're getting the jet ski when you're out on vacation in Turks and Caicos. That is what you are getting with Matthew Stafford. But at the end of the day, the future is still very murky for him in this situation with the Los Angeles Rams. We've had retirement rumors with Matthew Stafford for years on end, it seems. And we even have had some stuff where even as of lately, the back injuries and some of those things were very big concerns for us coming into the NFL season, and they haven't showed their ugly face yet. And I hope that they don't show their ugly face at all this year. But those are things that we need to consider when we are looking at Matthew Stafford from a dynasty lens. Now, all of that being said, as I mentioned, if you find him on the right team, a team that is going in the wrong direction and looking to sell those older assets, I think you can get him for that mid-second round pick or that late second round pick, potentially depending on your league, if that team is trying to sell off some points, because he is not going to be commanding that first. We've talked about that. He will not get you a first unless you were very lucky in playing in a league that doesn't value the quarterbacks the same way as the market. But that may be the case here with some of these leagues. The market and the ecosystem is different for every league. But if you're looking for a high ceiling guy, I think Matthew Stafford, short-term rental. But hey, we all want to have some fun on a jet ski on vacation. So make sure you go get that rental if you can do it. You might not be able to, but hey, sometimes that is the case when it comes to these trade videos. We give you some names to target. Maybe you can get them, maybe you can't. Hopefully you can, because I think these are fair market prices for all of them based on KTC and Fantasy Calc. But that is the players that I would be trying to trade for with my second round picks. TJ Hockenson, Khalil Shakir, and Matthew Stafford. All right, so there you have it, guys. Thank you for coming over to the Dynasty Nerds YouTube channel. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed. Content coming all the time, every single day on this channel, so make sure you guys like the content as well. It is the best free way to show this channel some support. But with all that being said, I have nothing else for you guys today, so I will see you on our next episode. Until then, peace out.